Hello and welcome to Heartpreneur TV. I'm your co-host, Val McGowan. Super excited to have you here today. We have a very exciting guest and a very interesting topic to share with you today. If you're in business, you want to be listening to this because it's going to support you and make a difference in your business. So our show title today is Create a Revolution, the 3 simple ways to build a community of engaged, raving fans. So our guest today is Marusha Murphy. For the last 24 years, Marusha has created groundbreaking work in bringing humanity back to virtual and hybrid community design, and has even been brought into Facebook and the United Nations because of her work with growing, monetizing, and expanding impact-driven brands. She works with impact-driven coaches, consultants, and community builders to share the best practices in creating engaged, people-first, profit-follows communities that bring in sales while creating spaces where members can feel like they belong. Now, we know that's Heartpreneurs, and we all want to be able to create those kinds of communities for our businesses as well. So welcome to the show.
Velma, thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure to be here.
I'm really excited about this topic because I've been a member of this Heartpreneurs community for many, many years. I've been working off and on with Terry for over 20 years. So I love community. I love people. That's just part of who I am as a person, is I love people. And I'm in the process of building a community myself. So yeah, I'm all ears for this.
Wonderful. Wonderful. We're going to have a lot of fun today.
Absolutely. So in your bio, you actually spoke about how you've been brought into Facebook and the United Nations because of your work with growing communities. Why United Nations? Like that's a giant community.
So it's actually an interesting story. It kind of happened on It was just kind of a happenstance that it showed up. Serendipitous moment in all honesty. I'm here for all the honesty. So I'll share those details. So basically, one of the communities I had the pleasure of building with a passion of mine was around the topic of coffee. I built my own coffee brand called Perky Perky. But right before I had built Perky Perky, I had been building a mom's network in Austin, Texas, when I lived in Austin, Texas. And it was initially just to be a mom's group because I was a mom, a brand new mom. Basically, I had my oldest. She was already about almost 6 years old. And then I had 2 more babies. So basically, I felt like I was becoming a mom again for the first time, but I didn't know anybody in Austin. So a friend of mine and I decided, my friend Sarah and I decided, hey, in 2014, hey, what if we bring together a group of women that we've gotten to know through the birthing center here, just simply to support one another, because it takes a village to raise a mom. And the truth of the matter is we really put a lot of love and effort as we needed it, in a way that we really needed it to support us in our own journeys of motherhood. And next thing we know, we've got this amazing, vibrant experience of moms from all over the city of Austin, Texas, just raising up other moms. I mean, we would have meal trains for moms who were brand new to motherhood, just literally having had babies. We would help moms that were in abusive situations get out, find partners with nonprofits that would be able to support them in a way that we couldn't. We created such an incredible experience. Today, to this day, it is now 30,000 women large. It's actually, this next week will be 10 years old, and 30,000 women large. And we've got partnerships with lots of different nonprofits and the main grocery chain in Austin, so that we can really begin to serve moms, because it takes a village to raise a mom. So the long and the short of it was, I built this coffee company because I started to experience the stories of moms outside of my own journey. And I wanted to make the coffee brand a love letter to these women. And next thing I know, I grow this entire coffee brand through community. We have 1,000 bags sold in month 1 of our sales. And the United Nations, after a few years of building Perky Perky, picked it up for Women's Entrepreneur Day. So during Women's Entrepreneur Day, they were like, holy cow, we want all of the women, major women who are major players in their space. Everything from the daughter of Mary Kay to Elon Musk's sister Tosca was there receiving our coffee as part of Women's Entrepreneur Day. And we were asked, we were shared to be one of the top 10 women-owned brands to be on the lookout for in 2020. So it was a really incredible experience to kind of create that. I didn't go out of my way to find United Nations. I didn't know that they would ever be someone, but they came to me saying, how do you do this? How do you do this well? And so we would have those conversations. Facebook came to me earlier than that and said, you can we tap on your shoulder because what's this community that you're creating? And I was like, the Austin Moms Network. Am I in trouble? And they're like, no, you're not in trouble. It's so engaged. We don't often see groups at this level of engagement. And you obviously know how to do something well to have created more than just a group. Zuckerberg, it knows that this is the future, that over the next 15 years, we're going to be focused only on community and groups, because this is the future of being online. And so basically they had come to me at that point and said, help us understand, how do we do this better? How do we share more with other communities? So it was a really incredible opportunity to, spend time with Facebook, get to know their team. We ended up having a block party on the streets of Austin, Texas together, to celebrate moms and the community itself, as well as, for their own efforts and PR, that communities were going to be the way of the future. So that was that was a lot of fun. And yeah, a little bit about those two in particular.
I love that. And what I heard was, I loved your saying of a village to raise a mom, because the term is a village to raise a child.
Right.
And yet in order to raise children well, we do need to raise up the moms.
Yeah.
Lift them up. And what I really loved was how you shared that with your coffee brand, it was a love letter to the moms. And that, drop my pen. Sorry, I take notes while I'm doing these things, because there's little juicy bites in these things that I really love. And what I heard was, and I'm going to guess that this is kind of the backbone of what you're going to be teaching, is in a community, really, we're creating a love letter to the people that we're serving.
That's right. That's absolutely correct. And in fact, we need to first focus always, always, always on the heartbeats in the room. Heartbeat. And so when Terry and I first met, I was like, we were talking about Heartpreneur, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to hear what I say every single time I'm with my students or my clients. I let them know it's about the heartbeats first. Once we can get in that mind frame that it's about the person across from you who also has this. I want all of us for a minute right now, actually, to just put one of our hands on our heart and just take a minute here to just feel your own heart. And I want you to recognize that the person right now has also got their hand on their heart, and that person loves in similar ways that you love, has curiosities in similar ways that you do. It has been angry just like you have, has felt fear, has been curious, wants to be adventurous, really is saddened by something right now, loves so deeply another, and is yearning for more time. All of those things we have in common, and so much more. And when we get our head out of being in business and we take that hat for a second and put it to the side, we can learn 101 million strategies to do the same thing, my friends. But the truth is, we already have within us everything we need to be a kind, beautiful person that can see someone else with dignity. And that someone else with dignity is that person that is right now wanting to be served by you, or is served by you. or is hoping that you share it with them in a way that they can hear you, heartbeat to heartbeat, so they can be served by you, you know?
I love that. I love that. Focus on the heartbeats in the room.
Yeah.
So a lot of the work that I end up doing is teaching people to give that to themselves.
Yes. It has to start
Because
there.
it has to. It like and we did this, we like feel your own heartbeat and then consider the heartbeat that's across from you. So we do need to give ourselves those same things. We write a love letter to ourselves,
Yes.
things like that. I love that. So this is really good. This is really good. So one of the things that you do enjoy talking about is what it takes to be a revolutionary leader.
Yeah.
And I am a firm believer that parents are leaders. I know that raising my teenage son through a divorce was probably the best leadership training ground I could have ever been put into. And so, what are your thoughts on what it takes for us to be that kind of leader?
I love that question. Thank you for asking. Yeah, I mean, so that's you picked up on something I think that's really important is, well, I think two things. One, that leadership, a lot of us will look at our lives and be like, I don't know, I'm not sure if I'm a leader. I don't know if I'd call myself. And that's because we often have a defined definition in our minds or an idea of what a leader looks like, right? And to your point,
CEO.
right. It's only the CEO, or it's a CEO that has had this much success, or it's, my former boss. That's a leader, of an organization. But me, I'm a solo entrepreneur. Like, I know I kind of lead, but like, what does that look like for me? So oftentimes when I'm working with, well, not often, every time I'm working with a client on designing, taking that vision that they have on how they want to impact the world
Mhm.
and really make a dent in their space in the way in which they know they can do with the fingerprints that they have and the heartbeat that they are going to be bringing to the conversation. I ask them, well, what would be revolutionary in your space? Like that
Mm.
really feels aligned for you. What would be, and what I mean by that is what would be the thing that your space needs now more than ever? Your people that you're serving need now more than ever that you just don't see in your marketplace or in your industry or, you know, through the people, other people that are speaking about the same thing that you are. What is it that's different? And so when we talk about revolutionary, I'm not necessarily talking about just like something novel. I'm talking about something that's really game changing, something that's
Mhm.
really looking to turn the heads. This is why, the TED movement, the TEDx talks, and the TEDx talks have become so incredibly in demand. Is because we're seeing ideas come from different perspectives, right? And the
Yeah.
truth is, we all have one of the at least one of those, if not many of those. And it's learning how to then be comfortable to be with your own unique idea and go to the world and say, "This is what I believe. This is what I stand for. This is part of my voice. This is a part of who I be. And this is how it supports you in this transformation in your own life." Right? And
Mhm.
so it's giving them, the person that you're meant to serve, an opportunity to really hear another perspective, potentially even lean in and say, yes, this has been something I've been thinking about myself so often, and I haven't heard anybody else say it the way you have. Thank you so much for putting it into a way that I can hear, you know?
I love that. I really love that because I've been saying for 20 years
Mm.
that the reason there are so many teachers is because there's twice as many ears.
I love that. Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's true because yes, a lot of people are saying very similar things. However, not everybody hears it the same way. So we need to be out there with our voices because there are ears that
Yeah.
hear what it is that we've got to share and the way we've got to share it that's very unique.
That's right. And that's the thing. I think the first thing when we talk about being a revolutionary leader is to recognize, oh, like to have that awareness within ourselves. Like,
Mhm.
and then to have the courage and the love for ourselves enough to be able to say, all right, let's go. Like that's someone that's revolutionary. And as it relates to being in leadership, the minute we open our mouths, it doesn't matter if we're even at the grocery store right now, right? And we are, at in some cases we could say, if you're at the deli counter and you're asking for a pound of, sliced turkey, oven roasted turkey, and you're in a position of power at that point, right? And how you show up to that person that's serving you there's a dynamic there, and you have
Mhm.
an opportunity to influence that connection in that moment. You could go up to that counter and be like, just give me a pound of turkey, okay, thanks. Oh, right. I can't.
Right? Yeah.
Or you could say, hi, how are you, thank you so much. Hey, I would really love a pound of turkey today, can you, and having it sliced like this would be ideal, would you mind helping, right?
Yeah.
And obviously to your each of our own ways in which we would do that. But my point is that how we energetically show up into a room will ripple effect into the lives of everybody else. That is leadership. That is us choosing our leadership. That's being intentional about our leadership and our influence in a space. So when you bring in revolutionary and you bring in leadership and how you show up in the essence of who you are before,
Mhm.
and I'm not talking about the ego, by the way. Ego oftentimes is the things that we've done in the past, so I could be like, oh yeah, I've worked with, the United Nations, I've worked with Facebook, I've created over 250 communities, like I've built them to this much, like I actually have had, that's been one of my own challenges, Velma, like is really owning a lot of what I've created, because it just feels really uncomfortable for me to be putting that on the front face, right? And I get it, it's marketing, right? It's important.
Mhm.
So that's a part of my own personal development, my own professional development, and my growth, as each I'll have. But I guess why I'm sharing that, and I should say, and I'm sharing that because really what matters even more than that, like all of your accolades and such, is how you choose to show up in the room. I have a
Mhm.
I have a mentor who would say to me, he goes, I want you to imagine all of the people that that if they were influenced by your voice were in a party. Can you imagine all of those people right now in a room, like at a party, right? So you could think, for me, it would be like Oprah. It would be, who would be in that room? It would be Oprah. It would probably be, well, Elon Musk would maybe be in the room. He's not necessarily my favorite person, but he might be in the room. Whoever, right? Like all these influential humans are playing in a room, they're hanging out, they're at a party in a room together. And it's a glass house. So you right now are on the outside of that glass house looking in to all these people that you admire, their body of work, you admire how they show up in their leadership, you admire how they've made influential change, you can respect them for the kinds of change. Maybe it might be different than the way you've done it, but you respect their work, right? All of them hanging out and you're on the outside. He goes, what is the difference between you being on the outside and them on the inside? And I said, well, I guess, well, I mean, they have all these much more accolades, da, 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 da. And I just went on like, about like how different we are. And also I'm outside. He goes, well, what do you think they did to get inside that room? If they're just humans with heartbeats, just like you, what do you think they did to be inside that room? And I was like, I couldn't figure it out. And he goes, here's what they did. They opened the door to the party. They knocked on the door, they opened the door, and they walked in. And they walked in as that self that was willing to be at that party and have those conversations. And
Mm.
anyway, that right there is literally the only thing that is holding us back from being in the rooms that we want to be in, is stepping across the line to be at that party.
Chances are you're in somebody else's glass house with a party.
That's it. Exactly. And we all have heartbeats. We all
Yeah.
breathe. And it's all in our mind as to whether or not we belong there. Right.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and so
Yes.
someone can come back and say, hey, well, here's all the inequities. I understand that. I totally get that. And it's a lot of our own choice to be in that room or not. And we can find our way into that room by stepping across that line and saying, I'm courageous enough to stay because I belong here. Doesn't matter what.
You can talk up a story about why you need to be on the outside of that glass house, or you could talk up a story about why you belong inside there.
Exactly. So when we make the choice to join into the party, our all of a sudden what happens is our level of influence starts to raise as well. When we're courageous, we come from that place of enough love for ourselves to realize the worthiness to be in that party with everybody else that's already there, and then that courage to use our voice and say, hey, I actually see it this way.
I love
Why do you
that.
see
I love that. So, in order to lead, in order to have an impact, to in order to focus on the heartbeats in the room,
it?
how do we find our heartbeats?
I love that
How do we
question
find
too.
those people?
Yeah. I think honestly, one of the best ways for us to find our people are being in spaces where they're already hanging out. So the more we get clear on who we like to serve, right? And when I say clear, I like to get down to like the really minute experience of that person. So this is why I talk about the love letter. I talk about the love letter specifically because every time I'm brought in to a new organization, I ask them to write a love letter to one person. So, for example, with Perky Perky, the coffee brand, I was speaking specifically to one of my best friends. I actually had a picture of her up while I would do anything about the coffee brand. When I was writing copy, I was writing emails, I was on our socials. I had a picture of her as if I was writing specifically to her. And the reason was because I knew her struggles were the exact struggles of the moms I'm specifically targeting to serve with this coffee line, right? And what would happen was women all over felt like they were being heard by the coffee brand and just by the coffee brand. So as someone who now is a consultant, as well as, owner of an e-commerce coffee brand, as well as helping, as partner of multiple different organizations and brands as well, I started with that exact thing with every single thing I've ever touched is who is it? Who's this person? Let's get to really understand what is it that really makes them laugh, cry, feel pain, want to get out of that pain. Like, how are we? And then we find out where are they hanging out. So I knew that my best friend loved yoga, right? So I started working with a lot of other people's communities in the yoga space. She was in this group called MOPS, Moms of Preschoolers, because that's where she and I met. And so I would partner with organizations, MOPS and organizations like MOPS, to speak at those events, right? I also knew that she had a son who was neurodiverse and specifically on the autism spectrum. And so, what would it look like to now spend time and write that love letter to all those mamas that have a child who is neurodiverse or on the autism spectrum, right? So as I started to really start to like only speak to those individuals, women who might not necessarily had all of those same things, yoga, a child that had neurodiversity, was interested in a preschool moms group. They might not have all of those, but they had one of those, and they would listen and see my work, and they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I feel like you're speaking to me." So this community grew and continued to grow and grow and grow because I was so connected to her heartbeat that I was able to write that love letter with such precision every day that I wrote, or with every video I created, right? Speaking as if this one person got me. So in all of our bodies of work, when we're looking at like how do we do this? How do we find our people? Sometimes we only actually need a small number of people that really feel safe, what I call the sacred four: safe, seen, heard, and honored and respected. When they feel that from you, you can build a phenomenal business. Absolutely
Mhm.
phenomenal. And you only need a few folks to do so. It doesn't need to. And when I say few, I like to start with like, hey, how do I get my first, 10? Then how do I get my first 100, thousand. It depends on what that person's vision is as to how they want to serve. But when I think about from a community perspective, I look at, okay, well, what would your community, how would it feel alive to you, and how would they feel alive with one another? Um, and what would that look like? What would that size be? What would be the experience that they would be having in connection with one another? And next thing you know, we get to really concoct something that is this love letter in action through community. Now, all of them are hanging out and gathering and connecting with one another. It's a really fun process.
So you wrote this love letter. Has anyone ever seen this love letter?
Yes, actually, yeah. So specifically in that company, I would write. So I wrote love letters. When I say love letters, I often, sometimes it's just a one-time love letter. But in this case, I would put pieces of that, like my love. It would be multiple love letters, right? So I on the coffee bags on the back of every one of the bags. So let's say you got wakey wakey, it would be a different love letter than delicious, than happy happy coffee, right? And then on our website would be different aspects. So it's just like if you were writing a love letter to someone that you really loved, you'd probably write multiple back in the day, right? They would write back to
Mhm.
you and then you would write back to them. So it would be kind of that. It's the same thing. That's the same energy that I bring in to that work.
I really like that. And what I'm actually feeling is that when we're looking at creating a community, whether it be on Facebook, whether it be offline or whatever, there's a heartbeat to the community too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it would be the resonance of the heartbeats that are in there, my own and my community, would
Yeah,
create the heartbeat of the community.
that's exactly right. And as the visionaries, there's this process I've coined, return on impact. So, we've heard the term return on investment many, many times, and return on investment is a very important thing to be paying attention to. I invest this much money, and therefore this is my outcome, right? And this is how
Mm-hmm.
much return I get on the investment I made. So wonderful. Now, I created this term return on impact because I recognize that community is a different animal in the world of business. It's not necessarily one, you put one in and you can expect at least one out. It,
Mm-hmm.
it is it is a long-term engaged process between you as the visionary, your leadership, your heartbeat, and also your values, your voice, your vision, and how you design that community so intentionally from a place of what I call experiential value. Like, what is the culture you're designing for this community? What are the rituals that you want to have this community to have so that when they come into the community, they feel that sacred four? Again, safe, seen, heard, honored, and respected. When we have those values aligned into how we intentionally design our rituals, and a ritual could be every single Tuesday we do a training. So Tuesday trainings. Every single Friday we have a happy hour, or one Friday a month we have a happy hour, right? But the members, as they start to create the sense of belonging, now begin to have these markers that help them feel grounded back into the community experience, right? So rituals
Love
are,
that.
yeah, so that's one piece. There's multiple pieces of creating an experiential value piece to it. But as we begin to do that, what happens is the return on impact is this beautiful way of being able to show that the impact of the leader, their heartbeat, their vision, their values, and their voice makes this ripple effect on them, anyone else that they serve on their, let's say they bring, they have some VAs, they have some designers, etc., on their team, let's say, right? Anyone
Mm-hmm.
else that serves with them is going to be a reflection of the leader of the community, a leader of their business, and how they're feeling and evoking inspiration to the rest,
Mm-hmm.
evoking that the leadership qualities that they want them as a team to then serve others with, right? So that then impacts all the beautiful humans that they serve, right? So in community, the ripple of the return on impact is this beautiful ripple based on the leadership and the heartbeat of the visionary, how it goes into the team, and then ultimately the team to the people that they're serving. And then from there, looking at the return of their lives into other people's lives, right? And to the people that they impact, like you will impact your son, guaranteed, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then he, because of his impact, your impact on him, is going to have his own ripple into everybody, in all the people that his life touches as well.
I've said before that if we actually could see all of the people that we impact with that ripple effect, we'd never see the end of the line.
It's the best. It's the
We'd
best.
never see it. Yes. Yes. So, I'm kind of disappointed we're at the end of our half hour because I had lots more questions. Lots more questions. And I failed to create a banner for people to know how to connect to you. What is the best way for people to connect to you?
Oh, super easy, super easy. So you see my name here, Marusha at Revolutionary Communities. If you just go revolutionarycommunities.com, you will find lots of really good, juicy stuff there. You can join the what I call the Swell. It's our weekly newsletter that goes out to all of the folks that are signed up for the newsletter, and you can sign. And you can also sign up and subscribe to our podcast. So in season 1, you learn all of my core strategies. I wanted to make sure that folks that are listening to the podcast have access to how I design communities very intentionally. So feel free to listen to season 1 and then reach out to me. Feel free to find me on LinkedIn, here on Facebook. I'm here for you.
Perfect. Okay, I'm making note of that. I am making note of that. Because that what you've expressed here is really at the core of my own being. And I choose to make him an impact. It's scary.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it anyways.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's what we need to do. Yeah. Like when you were sharing about, the different ways that you've had the impact and where you've had the impact and being noticed by Facebook and United Nations and stuff like that. It's scary. And it's important because I love that you do choose to share that, because we do need to own those beautiful parts of ourselves.
Yes.
Without embarrassment or concern or judgment or any of those things. It's really important because that's how we make the impact.
That's how we make the impact. Exactly. I don't often share this, but my own business coach keeps telling me I need to share it more. So I'm gonna. But when I was 18 years old, I had the privilege of being connected and serendipitously met one of the, I believe, biggest world changers of our time. And it was a gentleman by the name of Mr. Rogers. And
Ooh.
Mr. Rogers of Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers neighborhood, he went to my school. He went to Rollins College here in Florida, and he was on the board. It was a few years before he passed away. And I was right there at the right time. And he was struggling to get back up. He was tying his shoe, leaned down to tie it, and was having a hard time getting back up. I helped him up, and next thing I know, I turned into this like 5-year-old little girl in front of him, and was like, "Oh my gosh, Mr. Rogers!" And what ended up happening was it was the beginning of a mentorship with him up until he passed through a leadership society I was involved in on the campus. And it changed who I am. And this idea of love first, no matter what, became as an 18-year-old person, really the foundation for my own leadership, because I had the pleasure and opportunity to connect with him and his beautiful wife. Also, I ended up working at that college for quite a few years thereafter, and she was a part of my first career's mentorship as well. And so to be able to have that as our foundation, I'm like, this is the only thing I want to do for the rest of my life is to make sure that this continues further And that those of us who are brave enough, courageous enough to say yes to creating impact on the planet through love, heck yeah, we're going to do that. And we're going to learn how to do it and grow our communities alongside us and in hand, really seeing each of those people. Guess what happens when we do that? Profits follow. Significant profits can follow because we really care about the humans first.
Mhm.
So people first, profits follow. And yeah, and love always wins.
Always wins. And Mr. Rogers is somebody who really paid attention to the heartbeats in the room.
He certainly did.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for your time. We did not get to cover everything that I really wanted to cover. However, I do believe that what we covered is really important and super valuable. So thank you so much for coming and sharing your time and your knowledge with us. I'm really grateful.
I am.
Revolutionarycommunities.com. Make sure you go check it out, people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Velma.
And for those of you out there in YouTube land, Facebook, we have a community here, Heartrepreneurs with Terry Levine. We'd love to have you here. You're going to connect with a whole lot of heartbeats here. Thank you and have a brilliant day.